Welcome back to another episode of Jack Talks Bikes, and today we're diving into the 5 most expensive motorcycles ever to be sold at public auction. These are the machines that collectors are throwing ridiculous sums of money at. We're talking hundreds of thousands of pounds, or rather hundreds of thousands of dollars, because all of the bikes on this list sold through auctions in the good old US of A. Now, before we get into the list, I want you to have a little think about what kind of bikes, and I say bikes plural, you will be buying with this money, because we are talking insane sums of money. I know I would have a garage absolutely full of old 90s Japanese tat, but that's just me. Let me know in the comments what you guys would buy, and let's jump straight into this video, starting at number 5 with the cheapest of the top 5. And let me tell you, this bike was not cheap by any standards. So in at number 5 is the 1915 Cyclone Board Track Racer. This bike sold for a staggering $852,500. Now, Cyclone is one of those mythical earlier American marques where only a handful of these bikes have survived today. Despite their looks, these things were basically the Formula One bikes of the 1910s. They were stripped down, stupidly fast for their day, and they raced, would you believe, on wooden velodromes, much like we do on pedal bike tracks in the Olympics and that these days, with no brakes on the bikes at all and far fewer safety rules. But what really sent the price skyward of this particular bike was Steve McQueen Provenance. This exact bike that we're talking about, the one that sold at auction for that price, was owned and sat in Steve McQueen's legendary bike collection. And when a bike is already ultra rare and has that celebrity ownership behind it, well, collectors go absolutely feral for it. So this was a century-old racing bike that raced at 100 miles per hour in the 1950s. So imagine that, 1950s, that would have been lightning fast. And it was owned by someone that we can only emphasize was the king of cool. So that's how this bike ended up with a sales figure of over $850,000. So in at number 4 is the 1938 Crocker Small Tank. Now, this bike sold for not much more than the last one. It had a sales figure of $880,000, and it sold in Las Vegas earlier this year. Crocker bikes are often called American superbikes of the pre-war era, despite clearly looking like a cruiser or a bobber by today's standards. These were hand-built in Los Angeles, and at the time, there was limited numbers of them, so you can only imagine today there's even fewer of them out there for people to go and buy. They were faster than Indians and Harleys of the day, and if you bought a Crocker in the 30s, well, you were basically the same guy that we might see turning up to a bike show on a Panigale V4 by today's standards. This particular example that sold was stunning. It had matching numbers, documented history, and it's one of the finest restorations out there. Crocker rarely appear at auctions because there's so few of them, so when they do, collectors do tend to circle like a pack of sharks. At number 3, we've got the 1951 Vincent Black Lightning. This thing sold for $929,000. Now, honestly, I thought this was going to be at number 1 at the list, but there were 2 bikes that were more expensive than this at auction. It's the most extreme, race-focused Vincent ever built. It's lightweight, stripped down, and properly fast. The one that crossed the blocks in 2018 had land speed record pedigree. A bloke called Jack Errett rode it in Australia, and it set records that stood for decades. Put all of that together, so the rarity, the originality of the bike, and that real-life racing heritage, and you've got yourself one of the most desirable British motorcycles ever manufactured. At number 2, it's the 1908 Harley-Davidson strap tank, which sold for $935,000, so we're still not quite at that $1 million mark. This is as early as Harley-Davidson get. These pre-1910 strap tanks are essentially the birthplace of the brand. They're the blueprint that eventually became the world's most famous cruiser company. This particular bike had absolutely unbelievable originality. Many early Harley-Davidsons are gone and heavily rebuilt, but this particular one spent decades being preserved in a Wisconsin collection after being rediscovered years earlier. For collectors of American motorcycle history, bikes like this are the absolute holy grail. Now, before we hit number 1, which by the way you should try and guess now, I just want to take a moment to thank the guys at True Tension for supporting this channel. If you've watched me for a while now, you know that I actually use all their stuff on my bike, from the chain cleaning kits, lubricants and monkey juice bike cleaner, the whole lot. They've supported my channel massively, and they're supporting you guys by offering you 30% discount across their entire range of products. All you have to do is go to the website and use the code TALKS30, displaying it on the screen right now at checkout, and you'll get yourself 30% off. They also have an affiliate link in the description below, and if you choose to buy anything through that, it genuinely helps me keep this channel running, because it literally helps support keep the lights on in the garage, and it doesn't cost you guys a penny more. So big thanks to the guys at True Tension for backing the channel, and right now we should get back to the video and see what came in at number 1 on this insanely expensive list of motorbikes. So, taking the top spot and breaking that $1 million barrier finally, it is another 1915 Cyclone. This time it's a V-twin roadster and it sold for a staggering $1.32 million earlier this year. This sale made history because it was the first motorcycle to ever sell for more than $1 million at a public auction. Now again, as I've mentioned, at Cyclone, they only built a small number of bikes and they had engineering that was way ahead of their time, but unfortunately they just ended up disappearing from the market entirely, which makes these bikes exceptionally rare. This example came from a collection called the Urban Hirsch Collection, and it had world-class restoration and an impeccable documentation. Now, when you pair that with a high-energy auction room in Las Vegas and an increasingly enthusiastic collector's market, well, suddenly a 110-year-old motorcycle is gonna sell for supercar money. So there you have it then. 5 of the most expensive motorcycles to ever be sold at a public auction. What would you guys buy with that kind of money? What bikes would you have in your garage? How many bikes do you think you'd have in your garage? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching. And if you're interested in finding out why I've started this channel, then click the video over here. And if you're not already, then make sure you join the channel, subscribe by clicking the little subscribe button that's over here. And whatever you're doing with the rest of your day, well, I hope you have a good one. Thank you very much for taking the time to watch.